Evening. Uh, this is Dr. Vijayvani, PG second year, presenting this topic. The class is moderated by Dr. Arushi ma'am. Now, what are all the contents I'll be talking in this topic of difficult weaning? My contents would be definitions of weaning, weaning criteria, tests to predict weaning success, RSBI, SBT, the spontaneous breathing trials, failure indices, both objective and subjective indices, approaches to weaning, and causes of weaning failure, and how to correct them. Definition. What is weaning? Weaning is the gradual process of decreasing the mechanical ventilatory support and transferring the ventilation process from mechanical support to patient's spontaneous breathing apparatus. Weaning is divided into two components. One is liberation, secondly, extubation or decannulation. Liberation refers to that the patient no longer requires mechanical ventilation. Extubation or decannulation refers to removal of the endotracheal tube or tracheostomy tube. Now, what is weaning success? Weaning success means extubation and absence of ventilatory support 48 hours following extubation. Weaning progress. It means requirement of non-invasive ventilation after extubation. Now, weaning failure, it has three criteria in it. One is failed spontaneous breathing trial, re-intubation or resumption of ventilatory support 48 hours following successful extubation, or death within 48 hours following extubation. Now, this is the schematic diagrammatic representation of a mechanically ventilated patient in an ICU. What are all the courses that happens in a mechanical ventilated patient when he is admitted in the ICU between his admission and discharge? Initially, we will treat his acute respiratory failure by securing his airway using an endotracheal tube or tracheostomy tube and providing him an appropriate mode of ventilation. In the second step, clinician will suspect that the point at which the patient is ready to begin the weaning process. Thirdly, we will assess the readiness to wean by daily testing of certain physiological parameters like his vital capacity, spontaneous tidal volume, spontaneous frequency, and one of the special parameter, that is RSBI, which is rapid shallow breathing index. Next, we will give daily spontaneous breathing trials. Next, extubation, that is removal of the ET tube, and re-intubation, that is replacement of the endotracheal tube if the patient is not withstanding his spontaneous ventilation. Now we will talk about weaning process. Simple weaning, difficult weaning, and prolonged weaning. What is simple weaning? It is successful transition to successful extubation on first attempt without difficulty is simple weaning. 69% of weaning accounts to simple weaning in ICU. Now, difficult weaning and prolonged weaning, they both constitute approximately 21%. Difficult weaning refers to failed initial weaning and require up to 3 spontaneous breathing trials or long as 7 days from the first spontaneous breathing trial to achieve successful weaning. What is prolonged weaning? It refers to failed at least 3 weaning attempts or require more than 7 days of weaning after the first spontaneous breathing trial. Now, in weaning, we consider two-step strategy. One is we have to assess the readiness for weaning, that is by using certain weaning criteria. And secondly, we will give spontaneous breathing trials to patient. What are all the weaning criteria? We have clinical criteria, ventilatory criteria, oxygenation criteria. We have to assess the pulmonary reserve and pulmonary measurements. Now coming to clinical criteria. First, initially, there should be resolution of acute phase of the illness, which promoted the need for mechanical ventilation in that patient. That is, the patient should be afebrile, he should be free of any infection, there should be no sleep deprivation, electrolyte, acid-base imbalances should be corrected, no nutritional or caloric deficit, and there should be an adequate hemoglobin concentration in patient. Secondly, patient's mental status should also be adequate. He should be arousable and awake. And adequate cough and gag reflexes should be present in patient. And there should be absence of excessive secretion. cardiovascular and hemodynamic stability. It means that there should be no clinically important hypotension or no requirement of vasopressor or inotropic support, or only a low dose vasopressor therapy, that is dopamine or dobutamine in the range of less than 5 mics per kg per minute. Now coming to
Apurva. 1 minute, Apurva. Apurva, can you tell me why is a cough and gag reflex important?
Ma'am, the patient should be able to swallow, otherwise there'll be risk of aspiration.
Okay. So how much should be, what do you mean by adequate mental status? What should be the GCS?
GCS should be more than 12.
Anjusha, do you agree with her?
Hello, ma'am.
How much should be the GCS?
I'm not sure, ma'am. It must be more than 8 anyway.
Yes, because below 8 you have to intubate the patient. Okay. So your GCS should be above 8. Adeep, can you tell me conditions in which patients generally have a low GCS?
Ma'am, in cases of head injury,
Yes.
hypoglycemia.
Okay. Basically all neurological conditions, head injury, trauma, stroke, these conditions we have a low GCS, so we take care.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Shivani, you can continue. Please continue.
Yes, ma'am. Now, coming to ventilatory criteria. In ventilatory criteria, first this patient should tolerate spontaneous breathing trial. Next, PaCO2. PaCO2, it is the most reliable indicator of ventilatory status in patient. In a patient with normal lung function, PaCO2 in the range of 35 to 45 and pH in the range of 7.35 to 7.45 is acceptable. But in patients with COPD, slightly higher PaCO2 and a slightly lower pH is acceptable when in comparison to his baseline PaCO2 and pH values. Now coming to vital capacity, it should be more than 10 ml per kg. What is vital capacity? It is the amount of volume of air that is maximally exhaled after a maximal inspiration. Spontaneous tidal volume, it should be more than 5 ml per kg. As discussed in our previous class, both vital capacity and spontaneous tidal volume can be measured using a device that is Wright spirometry. Spontaneous frequency should be less than 35 per minute. And F by VT, this is RSBI, rapid shallow breathing index. The value should be less than 100 breaths per minute per liter. It will be discussed in my later slides. Minute ventilation should be less than 10 liters with satisfactory ABG. Now, causes for increased minute ventilation are increase in CO2 production, like secondary to extensive burn injuries, increase in body temperature as a compensatory response to metabolic acidosis, increase in alveolar dead space in conditions like emphysema and low cardiac output states. Coming to oxygenation criteria. In oxygenation criteria, PaO2 without PEEP should be more than 60 mmHg at FiO2 up to 0.4. Now this PaO2 of 60 mmHg will correspond to SaO2 of about 90%. As this is known by our oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. Now PaO2 with PEEP, this PEEP is applicable in patients that is who have atelectasis or in obesity patients. In that patients we apply PEEP and the criteria should be more than 100 mmHg at FiO2 up to 0.4 and PaO2 by FiO2 ratio should be more than or equal to 150 mmHg. QS by QT, that is shunt by total perfusion ratio, should be less than 20%. If it is more than 20%, correction should be done even before attempting weaning. Alveolar arterial oxygen gradient should be less than 350 mmHg at FiO2 of 1 in mechanically ventilated patients. Now, what are all the tests? Yes, ma'am.
Kanya, can you tell me that what is a normal PF ratio?
Ma'am, normal PF ratio is more than 300 mm.
And for ARDS,
Ma'am,
when do we?
ma'am, less than that.
Less than
Depending
300 is ARDS?
Ma'am, less than 200 is ARDS.
Okay, so if with the patient's P by F ratio is supposing 150, so can I wean a patient? He's still in ARDS.
Acha,
Um,
I don't know, ma'am.
no. Then why is Vijayamani written that? Rajeshwari, can you answer?
Ma'am, no, ma'am.
Okay, Nisha, can you tell me, can we start weaning a patient with a PF ratio of 150? Like ARDS is 200, no?
Yes, ma'am. But I don't know this answer, ma'am.
See, that is why we have so many criteria. If the patient is improving, the purpose of asking this question is that yes, you can wean on P by F ratio of 150 and above. Why? Because the patient has started improving, and if his clinical and other parameters are fine, then you don't have to wait only for that. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Vijayvani, please.
Yes, ma'am. Now, what are all the tests to assess the pulmonary reserve of patient? One is vital capacity, as I discussed in my previous slide. It should be more than 10 ml per kg. And the next important test is maximal inspiratory pressure. Now, this is the negative pressure manometer, which is used in our ICUs to measure maximal inspiratory pressure. Now, even before performing this procedure, patient should be encouraged. You should be explained about the procedure, and you should be switched off from the ventilator. And this device is connected to the endotracheal tube, and we ask him to take a deep inspiration followed by exhalation. And we measure the maximal negative inspiratory pressure in 20 seconds. It should be more than minus 30 centimeters water. Now, this maximal inspiratory pressure is one of the best predictor of weaning success. Next, coming to the pulmonary measurements. Static compliance. Static compliance should be more than 30 ml per centimeters water. Now, how do we measure static compliance? It is the ratio of tidal volume over the difference between the plateau pressure and the positive end expiratory pressure. Tidal volume and positive end expiratory pressure is directly measured from our ventilator. For measuring plateau pressure, we will put the patient on VCV mode, and we give a end inspiratory pause for 1 to 2 seconds and then measure the P-plat pressure. The static compliance value should be more than 30 ml per centimeters water. Next, coming to airway resistance. Now, airway resistance is calculated by the difference between the peak inspiratory pressure and the positive end expiratory pressure. Normal range is 0.6 to 2.4 centimeters water per liter. The airway resistance should be stable or it should be improving. VD by VT ratio, it is dead space by tidal volume ratio, which is otherwise the wasted ventilation. It should be less than 60% while we intubate the patient. Now, we will see the conditions where there is decrease in static compliance. Atelectasis, ARDS, tension pneumothorax, obesity, whenever there is retained secretion in lungs, will all decrease the static compliance. Now, what are all the conditions where the airway resistance is increased and dynamic compliance is decreased? Because dynamic compliance is nothing but the ratio of tidal volume over the peak inspiratory pressure minus the end expiratory, positive end expiratory pressure, that is nothing but our airway resistance. So conditions where the airway resistance is increased, our dynamic compliance will decrease. Now those conditions are the pathological conditions like bronchospasm, whenever there is kinking of endotracheal tube, airway obstruction, and when there is retained secretions in the airways. Now, what are all the impacts of delayed weaning and premature weaning? When we delay the weaning process, there is increased risk of nosocomial pneumonia, there is increased risk of VAP rates, prolonged sedation, prolonged neuromuscular blocking, ICU acquired weakness, that is critical illness, myopathy, neuropathies, delirium risk increases, increase in cost, depression, loss of trust in healthcare staffs. And impacts of premature weaning, increased risk of fatigue, gas exchange abnormalities, 7 to 11 times the reintubation risk also increases, increased risk of aspiration, atelectasis, and aspiration induced pneumonia. Now coming to the parameters predicting the success or failure of weaning. In this, the first and the last parameter is very important parameters. The first parameter is RSBI, that is rapid shallow breathing index. Next, ventilatory drive, ventilatory muscle strength, work of breathing, and lastly, spontaneous breathing trials. What is RSBI? RSBI is nothing but it is the ratio of respiratory frequency measured in breaths per minute over tidal volume measured in liters by respirometer or directly from ventilators. Now, if this ratio is less than 100, there is high probability of weaning success. If it is more than 100, there is high probability of failure. This predicts a successful spontaneous breathing trial. It has 97% sensitivity and 65% specificity. Now, how to measure RSBI? Measurement of RSBI. First, allow patient at least 3 minutes to stabilize the spontaneous breathing pattern. Measure the expired tidal volume and frequency for 1 minute. The average tidal volume is calculated by VE, that is the expired tidal volume over frequency. Now, later on, we can calculate the frequency over the tidal volume. This is the important slide. Now next, coming to the assessment of ventilatory muscle strength. Now ventilatory muscles must be strong enough to sustain spontaneous breathing. As I discussed, the two parameters which will assess the ventilatory muscle strength will be our vital capacity and maximal inspiratory pressure. Now vital capacity is completely dependent on patient cooperation. That is why the maximal inspiratory pressure is the best predictor of weaning failure.
1 minute, Vijayvanshi.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Bushra will tell me what is maximum inspiratory capacity in pressure. Okay, Ira.
Yes, ma'am.
What is maximum inspiratory pressure?
We ask the patient to deeply exhale and take a deep breath, and then we say, and then we in the manometer we see the maximum pressure, the negative pressure the patient can generate. So if it is more than 30, it means that the patient will be able to will be able to trigger the breath on his own. So that is one indicator that we can wean the patient. And then we see MEP, which will be the positive pressure, which should be more than plus 50. If that is there, means the patient will be able to generate cough.
Vijayvani, you agree with her?
Partially, ma'am.
Why partially? She's basically right. Only the maximum inspiratory pressure you will ask the patient to exhale to residual volume basically, and then you will ask the patient to take a deep breath, and the pressure against a closed glottis, you measure the inspiratory pressure. So if it's more than minus 30, it is a good predictor for weaning.
Okay.
Okay, Vijayavani, continue, please.
Now coming to ventilatory drive. The primary index of ventilatory drive is denoted as P100 or P0.1. Now this ventilatory drive cannot be measured in our normal ICU ventilators. It is this feature is present only in special ICU ventilators like Drager Evita. This is the measurement of ventilatory drive is done with a special valve system. The ventilatory drive, it reflects patient's drive to breathe as well as the muscle strength. Now P100 or P0.1, it is the airway pressure that is measured at the end of inspiration at 100 milliseconds when the airway is occluded. The normal value is 0 to -2 centimeters water. Value less than normal indicates inadequate strength for weaning, and if it is more than -6 centimeters water, there is high drive in patient and it can cause exhaustion. Now coming to work of breathing. Patient's spontaneous work of breathing plays an important role in success of weaning. Now, there are two components in work of breathing. One is non-elastic component, that is the resistive component, and elastic component, lung-related components. Now, the tracheal intubation will increase the resistive component of work of breathing, thereby reducing the dynamic compliance, as I told in my former slides. To initiate weaning, dynamic compliance should be more than 25 ml per centimeters water, and VD by VT ratio should be less than 0.6. Why we are worried about work of breathing? Because when there is increased work of breathing, it can lead to muscle fatigue and ventilatory dependency in patient. Now, how to minimize this work of breathing? We can minimize this work of breathing by adequately providing nutrition to the patient, by monitoring the pressure volume loop, selecting the appropriate level of sensitivity in flow and pressure, by eliminating the auto PIP, selecting appropriate mode of ventilation, and by decreasing the resistive work of breathing by suctioning and bronchodilators. Coming to spontaneous breathing trials.
1 minute, Vijayavani. Dwara, can you tell me what are the causes of increased compliance, dynamic compliance?
Dynamic compliance is increased whenever there is resistance between the ventilate. It is because of kinked ET tube. Whenever there is spasm in the patient and whenever there is any secretions, there is increase in dynamic compliance.
That's dynamic. And
Static compliance is because of lung conditions like atelectasis and pneumonia. Whenever there is built up secretions in the
ARDS and
yes,
species.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Vijayavani, continue.
Yes, ma'am. Spontaneous breathing trials, it is the best approach to determine patient's readiness to weaning. The spontaneous breathing trials, most commonly given trials in our ICUs are TPIS trial and CPAP PSV trials. Patient is assessed during spontaneous breathing. If patient tolerates this breathing trial for 30 to 120 minutes, discontinuation and extubation should be considered. 77 to 85% of patients passing spontaneous breathing trial are successfully weaned. Spontaneous breathing trial involves alternating spontaneous breathing and complete mechanical support. Coming to TPIS trials. Here the patient is disconnected from the ventilator using a T-shaped circuit design. The inhaled gas is delivered at a high flow rate greater than patient's inspiratory flow rate. Now, this high flow rate will carry the exhaled gas out of the apparatus, thereby preventing the rebreathing of expired air, and it also prevents patient from inhaling the room air. One of the disadvantages of TPIS trial is it is not possible for us to monitor the tidal volume and the respiratory rate that is generated by the patient. Now, as tolerated by the patient, time off the ventilator is increased. Now, when does the low levels of CPAP and low levels of PSV is beneficial? Now, this low levels of CPAP, approximately of 5 centimeters water, is beneficial in COPD patients with auto-PIP, and low levels of pressure support ventilation is beneficial in patients with asthma and neuromuscular diseases. Now, what are all the assessments we do during spontaneous breathing trial when we give this trial in patient? One is we will assess his respiratory pattern. We will assess the adequacy of gas exchange, his hemodynamic stability, and subjective comfort. Now, even before going to the subjective and objective indices in SBT failure, I want to tell that whenever there is SBT failure in a patient, the next SBT should be tried after 24 hours, preferably in the morning when the patient is awake. Now, failure of SBT, the subjective indices. Patient will be agitated, he will be restless, anxious, chest pain, complaints of chest pain, depressed mental status, diaphoresis, evidence of increased work of breathing, use of accessory muscles of respiration, and paradoxical breathing. The objective indices. Now in blood gases, in ABG, what all we will see? We will see PaO2 less than or equal to 60 mmHg on FiO2 more than or equal to 0.5 is again a failure of SBT. PaCO2 more than 50 mmHg or increase in PaCO2 more than 8 mmHg from baseline of SBT. If pH is less than 7.32 or decrease in pH more than or equal to 50% from baseline, and SaO2 less than 90% on FiO2 more than or equal to 0.5. Now in respiration, we see the frequency and F by Vt ratio. If the frequency is more than 35 breaths per minute or increase in frequency by more than or equal to 20% from baseline of SBT, and if F by Vt ratio is more than 100 breaths per minute per liter, that also suggests failure of SBT. In hemodynamics, we see heart rate, SBP, and cardiac arrhythmias. If heart rate is more than 140 beats per minute or increase in heart rate more than or equal to 20% from baseline of SBT, and SBP, that is systolic blood pressure more than 180 mmHg or increase in systolic blood pressure by more than 20% from baseline, even if the systolic blood pressure is less than 90 mmHg, and if there is presence of cardiac arrhythmias, all this suggests that there is failure of SBT. Now coming to approaches to weaning, we have TPIS trial and CPAP trials. I discussed this in my former slides. Next, we have pressure support ventilation, synchronized intermittent mandatory ventilation, closed loop weaning, and servo controlled ventilation. Coming to pressure support ventilation, this can be used as standalone. Yes, ma'am.
Vijayavani, is PSV and the CPAP same thing or different things?
Ma'am, different, ma'am.
Why is it different, Vijayavani?
Ma'am, in CPAP, we give a continuous positive airway pressure both in inspiration and expiration, whereas in pressure support, we just support the patient's breathing.
Inspiration or expiration? That will be the same thing, no?
Ma'am, in inspiration.
Swati, can you help Vijayavani? How is CPAP and PSV different?
Hello.
Yes. Are they the same thing or they are different?
Ma'am, they're different. Ma'am, I'm not sure of the answer.
Okay. Sachin? Gautam?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Gautam, can you tell me, is CPAP and PSV the same? Different.
Ma'am, CPAP gives it maintains the positive air pressure throughout both the expiration and inspiration, but PSV is something which supports the patient's effort but during the inspiratory part, ma'am. CPAP is mainly to prevent the atelectasis of the lower airways, but the PSV is like the main mode of inspiration for the patient. So whenever the patient wants to take in a breath, it will, based on the pressure support which you have kept, it will trigger a volume of air. CPAP is
Okay, Vijayvani, you were partly right. Okay, now you continue.
Yes, ma'am. Pressure support ventilation weaning. This can be used as standalone mode for weaning. Pressure support can be increased to achieve desired tidal volume and spontaneous frequency. Gradually, we decrease the pressure support level to a minimal level of 5 centimeters water. Now, why we decrease it to a minimal level of 5 centimeters water? This minimal level is needed to overcome the resistance that is offered by the endotracheal tube. If the patient tolerates this reduction in PSV, extubation can be performed. Meanwhile, periodic assessment is crucial using ABG, ECG, vital signs, and work of breathing. SIMV mode, it is the worst weaning, it has a worst weaning outcome, currently not recommended mode for weaning. It was initially used in combination with PSV, where they used to do stepwise reduction in SIMV rates and allowing the patient to assume work of breathing of the ventilator. Now coming to closed loop weaning. What is closed loop weaning? It is a system where the measured output as an effect upon the input quantity in such a manner has to maintain a desired output. Here the loop becomes closed by introducing some sensors, feedback pathways and comparators. Now how does closed loop weaning differs from open loop weaning? In open loop, all the settings need to be set manually, and in open loop weaning the output needs to be monitored frequently and settings are changed accordingly. It is cheap, simple, stable, and there are high risks of asynchrony. Examples for open loop weaning is our PSV mode, SIMV mode. Closed loop weaning, here some settings are automatically adjusted as per the monitored parameters. The ventilator itself takes into account the disturbances too and makes a corrective action. It is very sophisticated, hence it is costly, but it has a better synchrony. The examples for closed loop weaning are volume support weaning, where the clinician sets a desired tidal volume, ventilator delivers this volume at the lowest possible pressure support, and as the patient improves, the delivered pressure support is decreased to provide desired preset volume. Next, pressure regulated volume control. In this mode, pressure becomes inspiratory pressure is a variable factor and the desired or the set parameter is our tidal volume. Here the ventilator monitors each breath and compares the tidal volume with the set tidal volume. If the delivered volume is too low, it increases the inspiratory pressure on the next breath. If it is too high, it decreases the inspiratory pressure. Coming to the next mode, which is known as auto mode. This is beneficial in post-anesthesia patients who need mechanical support for some period of time only. Here, if the patient is having spontaneous effort, the ventilator switches from control mode to volume support mode. And if the patient is apneic, it will switch over from volume support mode to control mode. The next important mode of weaning is automatic tube compensation. Now, this is designed to reduce the imposed work of breathing by the tracheal tube. The automatic tube compensation activation uses data such as tracheal tube size and type to provide adequate pressure at the airway to overcome the imposed work of breathing due to endotracheal tube. Finally, we have adaptive support ventilation. It is designed to accomplish weaning using servo or computer-driven controlled closed-loop ventilation, where there is gradually we decrease the support. Now, in adaptive support ventilation, this adaptive support ventilation is available only in Hamilton ventilators. What we set in adaptive support ventilation is the patient's ideal body weight, percentage minute ventilation, FiO2, PEEP, pressure limit, rate limit, flow trigger, expiratory trigger sensitivity. Ventilator will continuously analyze the peak inspiratory pressure, tidal volume, respiratory rate, compliance. And ventilator automatically adjusts inspiratory pressure, IE ratio, flow rate, and respiratory rate. Now, what is the role of non-invasive ventilation in weaning? It is useful in hastening the extubation when SBT has failed. It is useful in COPD patient and not in other forms of respiratory failure, in patients with cardiogenic pulmonary edema, and to treat post-extubation respiratory failure. Routine recommendation of NIV is not allowed. It is beneficial only in patients who is having high risk of reintubation, that is Apache score of more than 12 at extubation, age more than 65 years, and cardiac failure at the time of intubation. Now coming to the causes of weaning failure. Now what are all the issues to be considered when weaning efforts fail? This is The mnemonic which is given in Washington Manual of Critical Care, weans now. We have to consider weaning parameters firstly. Secondly, the endotracheal tube related problems. We have to use largest tube possible. Consider PSV mode during SBT, suction the secretion. In ABG, we have to avoid or treat metabolic alkalosis, maintain PaO2 and PaCO2. The adequate nutritional supplementation, avoid excessive calories and avoid electrolyte deficiency, clear regularly the secretions and avoid excessive dehydration. Neuromuscular related factors like avoid neuromuscular blocking drugs and the drugs which potentiate neuromuscular blocking, that is aminoglycosides, clindamycin in patients with muscle weakness. Avoid unnecessary use of corticosteroids because using corticosteroids increases the risk of critical illness myopathy. Obstruction of airways, use of bronchodilators, and we have to also exclude foreign bodies within the airway. Related to wakefulness, avoid over sedation, wean in morning or when patient is most awake. Now coming to ABC of weaning failure, it is the structured approach. Now ABC here doesn't emphasize on specific order of assessment like that given in ATLS guidelines where A refers to airway, B breathing and C circulation. Here ABC, it is nothing but the alphabetical order that we have to consider for the causes of weaning failure. A refers to airway and lung dysfunction, B for brain dysfunction, cardiac dysfunction, diaphragm dysfunction and endocrine dysfunction. Coming to airway and lung dysfunction. In airway and lung dysfunction, we have to consider three problems. One is airway resistance related problems, compliance related problems, and gas exchange related problems. Whenever there is what are all the causes for increased airway resistance? Tube related, small diameter ET tube, sputum retention, central airways related problem, tracheostomy malposition, sputum plug, tracheomalacia, tracheal stenosis, and smaller airways, asthma and COPD. What are all the treatment strategies to prevent increased airway resistance? Change the tube, suction the ET tube, and the treatment strategy to reduce intrinsic PEEP is to change the cycling of criterion from 25% to 40%. Now this, by converting this cycling of criteria from 25 to 40%, we are basically prolonging the expiration duration. That is, we are increasing the IS to E ratio. This will significantly reduce the intrinsic PEEP and also the work of breathing. Now, applied PEEP may also reduce the inspiratory work of breathing that is imposed by intrinsic PEEP. And in cases of bronchospasm, short-acting inhaled beta agonists can be used. Compliance related problems, reduced compliance can be related to chest wall because of edema, elevated intra-abdominal pressure, pleural fluid, ascites, obesity, lung related causes, pneumonia, ILD, fibrosis, alveolar filling with edema, pus or collapse. Treatment strategies, reduce the edema of lung and chest wall by diuretics, dialysis, thoracocentesis in case of pleural effusion and removal of ascites. Gas exchange abnormalities, there can be hypoxemia or hypercapnia during SBT trials. Patient can be unable to increase the minute ventilation in response to high PaCO2 because of respiratory muscle weakness or altered respiratory mechanics. And we can also reduce the dead space by limiting our instrumental dead space, that is removal of HME filters as much as possible. Brain dysfunction. Delirium and depression is one of the most important cause for weaning failure in ICU patients. Impaired cognition is associated with 4 times higher risk of failed extubation. Anxiety, depression, sleep deprivation may all interfere with weaning. Midazolam is considered a risk factor for development of delirium. Now, what are all the corrective strategies? CAM ICU tool can be used to assess the delirium because 80% of delirium that occurs in ICU is hypoactive delirium and only 20% is hyperactive delirium that is easily manifested by, to the clinician. High levels of sedatives should be avoided. Daily wake-up call should be done. Limit noise and light during sleeping hours. Adequately treat pain or discomfort. Treatment of delirium using pharmacological or non-pharmacological methods. Preferably use dexmedetomidine in cases of prolonged sedation when compared to midazolam. Coming to cardiac dysfunction. Cardiac dysfunction. Now, weaning itself is a type of exercise tolerance to the patient. during weaning, there will be decrease in intrathoracic pressure. It will increase the left ventricular afterload. Increase in adrenergic tone will increase systemic venous return and increases left ventricular preload. There will be hypercapnia and hypoxia, which will increase the pulmonary vascular resistance, right ventricular hypertrophy, RV dilatation, and biventricular interdependence. Increased work of breathing will cause supply demand mismatch, and it will prone the patient to myocardial ischemia, which will decrease the LV compliance. Ultimately, all will cause increase in LV and diastolic pressure. Now, how to diagnose cardiac dysfunction? 12-lead ECG at the end of weaning will be suggestive of ischemia. If the patient is having pulmonary artery catheter in situ, then you can measure mixed venous oxygen saturation. There will be fall in SVO2, measurement of pulmonary artery occlusion pressure. There will be increase in more than 18, that is the pulmonary artery occlusion pressure will be more than 18 mmHg after SBT. Doing echo will show us diastolic dysfunction. And BNP. BNP increase more than 12% during SBT has a sensitivity of 76% and specificity of 78% in diagnosing cardiac dysfunction. BNP is released from the cardiac ventricles in response to the myocardial stretch. BNP is the most powerful hormonal predictor of LV ventricular filling pressure. Plasma BNP levels are elevated in acute congestive heart failure and in cases of right ventricular dysfunction. Now, this cardiac dysfunction doesn't happen in all the patients, only those high-risk patients. That is, patients with coronary artery disease, congestive heart failure, and COPD patients are more prone for cardiac dysfunction during weaning. Now, what are all the treatment options when there is cardiac dysfunction? Reduction in preload by giving diuretics, brain natriuretic peptide guided fluid therapy, and keeping the patient in negative fluid balance. Afterload reduction by giving nitrates, AC inhibitors, and reducing both pre and afterload by using non-invasive ventilation. Diaphragm or respiratory dysfunction. Now, it can be a drive related problem, muscle weakness related problem, or muscle fatigue. Most weaning failure patients, respiratory drive is increased, and in cases of critical illness myopathy, there is decreased drive. I had told how to measure the ventilatory drive in my previous slide. Muscle weakness, it is assessed by our maximal inspiratory pressure. More the negative value excludes significant inspiratory muscle weakness. If the less negative, do not prove muscle weakness because it depends on cooperation and lung volume. Muscle fatigue, hypercapnia during weaning trial is not a specific finding of muscle fatigue. There are other causes for muscle fatigue and hypercapnia, that is central hypoventilation and rapid shallow breathing. The absence of hypercapnia in a weaning failure patient virtually excludes inspiratory muscle fatigue. Now, the treatment strategies, all these treatment strategies which I'm going to tell is, it's all studied. It doesn't have any outcome benefit. Mechanical ventilation, it's a double-edged sword. So because of inspiratory muscle weakness, the inspiratory muscle training should be given. Antioxidants can modulate respiratory muscle function. And there are some studies showing that there is some effect of growth hormone treatment in improving the muscle function, and effects of tight glycemic control in reducing the critical illness myopathy. All this doesn't have outcome benefit. Metabolic and endocrine factors causing muscle weakness and difficult weaning are hypophosphatemia, hypomagnesemia, hypokalemia, poor glycemic control, corticosteroids, hypothyroidism, hypoadrenalism. Now, diaphragm dysfunction. How to assess diaphragm dysfunction? It is by using diaphragm ultrasound. It's a B-mode ultrasound that is performed using 10 MHz linear probe. The transducer is placed in the 8th intercostal space perpendicular to the chest wall between anterior and mid-axillary line. Diaphragm is imaged as 3 layers as shown in this figure. The two hyperechoic lines, below one is the peritoneal line, above one is the pleural line, and in between is the muscle mass, diaphragm muscle. Now, the diaphragm is imaged as 3 layers, the peritoneal membrane, pleura, and muscle. Diaphragm thickness is measured from mid-pleural to mid-peritoneal line, both during end inspiration and in end expiration. Diaphragm thickening fraction is calculated. If this diaphragm thickening fraction is more than 30%, it predicts success of weaning. Now, why we have to assess diaphragm dysfunction? Because 10% decrease in diaphragm thickness occurs within a week of mechanical ventilation, and this is noted in approximately 44% patients who are mechanically ventilated. Now, what are all the treatment options for patients with prolonged weaning? We can go for tracheostomy. There are many rehabilitation centers, terminal care, home ventilation, and specialized weaning units. Now, there was a study comparing protocolized weaning versus non-protocolized weaning. They found that protocolized weaning reduced weaning duration by 70% and length of stay decreasing by 11%. So all of us should follow protocolized weaning. This is the last slide of the day, which is going to summarize what all things I have told till now. Now here, how to assess the readiness and to wean the patient from mechanical ventilation. First, is the patient ready for spontaneous breathing trial? How do we come to know this? There should be evidence of reversal of underlying cause of respiratory failure. Patient should be awake, alert, cooperative. There should be adequate oxygenation. Patient should be hemodynamically stable. No clinically important hypotension. He should be on no vasopressor or inotropic support. It should be afebrile, pH and PaCO2 should be in acceptable range when compared to his baseline respiratory status. If answer to all this question is yes, proceed with spontaneous breathing trial. If it is no, continue mechanical ventilation and treat the underlying cause. If we proceed with the spontaneous breathing trial, then we have to see whether the patient is tolerating the spontaneous breathing trial. That is by our RSBI, it should be less than 100 breaths per minute. There should be acceptable gas exchange, stable respiratory rate, that is the respiratory rate should not increase more than 20% from baseline. Patient should be hemodynamically stable, heart rate should not increase more than 20% from baseline. Systolic blood pressure should not increase 20% from baseline, nor the systolic blood pressure should be less than 90 mmHg. You should be free from cardiac arrhythmias. There should be no significant change in mental status. There should be no evidence of anxiety or agitation, no evidence of increased work of breathing, or no diaphoresis. If answer to this is yes, then the patient is ready to be extubated. If it is no, continue mechanical ventilation. Now, when the patient is ready to be extubated, we should ask certain questions. Is the patient's airway patent? Can the patient protect his or her airway? Can the patient clear his or her secretion? If answer to this question is yes, proceed with extubation. If it is no, continue mechanical ventilation and consider causes for weaning failure. These are my references. That's all. Thank you.
Any questions, anybody? See, from exam point of view, you generally get short notes on rapid shallow breathing index, spontaneous breathing trials, and what is weaning, what are the objective criteria of weaning, objective and clinical, and role of NIV in weaning. For your theory purpose, these topics have to be covered. You need to know them.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Ma'am, one small doubt. In
Yeah.
in the page where TP's trial was written, they have written that tidal disadvantages, tidal volume and respiratory rate cannot be monitored. Tidal volume is
Yeah.
okay, but respiratory rate we can manually count also, and it is shown on the monitor also with the help of ECG leads. So isn't it that we can always monitor respiratory rate?
We can monitor respiratory rate, but then you have to calculate most of the times. No, you have to sit and you have to see, you have to count. But whereas if you use a PSV mode, it's basically in comparison with the PSV mode. So when you use a PSV mode or something and you connect it to the ventilator, a more accurate reading is there, respiratory rate. No, that's all it means. That's all what it means.
Okay.
You can feel free to contact me or Vijayavani for any further doubts. Okay, thank you, Vijayavani.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.